Alrighty, folks, we'll go ahead and get started since we've got quite a bit to pack in here for 45 minutes. But first things first, just want to welcome you to the Sin7 Foresight AI webinar for core users. We're going to go ahead and jump in here. But before we get started, I just kind of want to gauge the audience, kind of see what you're most interested in to learn today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll. Just so it'll help me tailor kind of what we want to go over, maybe spend some more time in some areas, maybe a little bit less than others. But what are you most interested in with Foresight AI? So are you interested in overstock, stock outs, saving time reordering, saving time in guesswork of how much to order, everything, or unsure? Looks like we've got some answers rolling in with everything, as well as stock outs and guesswork. And it looks like everything is actually inching ahead. So not a problem. I will spend maybe a little bit time on stockouts as well as saving time and guesswork as we go through our presentation. For now, I am going to go ahead and end this poll and we will move right along. Thank you so much for participating, by the way. We'll go ahead and get started. My name is Zoe. I'm an account manager here at Sin7. I've been here roughly 2 years, and in that time, the last 6 months, I've spent a lot of time on Foresight AI. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an expert, but I do know the software pretty well. So you're in good hands today as far as learning a little bit more. As we make our way through the webinar, please feel free to utilize the Q&A function if you have any questions throughout. I will get to those probably near the end. I will try to check questions during to see if it makes sense during the time and the module that I'm going over, but please utilize the Q&A function. So first things first, what is Foresight AI? So Foresight AI is a sales and inventory forecasting tool used to help you know what to order, when to order, and how much you should be ordering. So Foresight AI is designed to take out the guesswork of your inventory management to give you back time in reordering and capital in stock out and overstock amounts. So Foresight AI can also help make crucial business decisions in what products are performing well, allowing you to dig deeper into your business strategy to become more efficient and successful. With that, we can go ahead and hop into the demo. So first things first that you'll notice is you'll have a new module at the top and it is branded with the light purple Foresight AI. This one, first thing that we're going to show you is inventory health. This is going to give you a snapshot of what Foresight AI is trying to solve for. What does your inventory health look like? So we can see that we have our stockouts as a percentage, 8.75%. And with that, we also have our lost revenue to stock out. So essentially what we're saying is because we have 8.75% stocked out, we're losing out on 99,000 monthly. That's a pretty big number and really nice that that's easily calculated for you rather than having to try to do the guesswork of what that actually looks like maybe in your current process now. Additionally, we also have our overstock value, and that's going to be 422,000, which may or may not be more applicable to you, either having stock out issues or overstock issues, but this is going to give you an idea of what they look like in each realm. So if we wanted to click on Explore, this is going to show us our product availability report. So essentially what items are overstocked, stock out, and which are stocked regularly. So in this case, we have quite a bit of overstock. And again, we have that purple Foresight AI showing us what are the new tools available to us with the new software and the add-on. So we can see that we have overstock in these amounts. And as we slowly make our way through the product module, we can see this is something that's probably regularly stocked. We have some stockouts. And as we go through, we will eventually see a winner, and that's going to be designated by this purple crown, meaning that it's a product that does exceptionally well. So a pro tip is as you are getting started with Foresight AI, focus on your winners that are stocked out. These are going to be items that make you money and you're therefore missing out on the revenue. So if you have cash flow constraints, this should be an immediate priority and it's definitely going to be an easy win. These are items that move fast or they're high in revenue. And so these are ones that it's an easy win that once you have those stocked, you'll be able to sell and pocket that profit. And then if we're thinking about what that means as far as our inventory health, that's going to drive our stock up number down closer to zero, lost revenue down closer to zero. Closer that lost revenue amount goes to zero, that's just money in your bank account. Just as another note, that Explore button did go to that product availability report. I think that personally, the core reporting can be a bit static. That is something that we are working on. We have gotten some feature requests around that. But in the meantime, I highly recommend downloading and then manipulating the data that way. So as we continue and we make our way a little bit farther, we'll see that we have another Foresight AI module branding, and this is going to be our overstock and our understock. So it does also show last updated. In this case, because I'm in a demo QA environment, it is going to, it needs to manually update, which I haven't done yet, but yours, you'll just show a sync that's a lot quicker. I also hovered over an I, and that's going to give you a little bit more info on what each of these modules is. So in this case, with the overstock and understock, this is going to break down even further what category a specific SKU falls into. You can click into each of these and it's going to give you an actual report. But first, I'm going to hit you with a few facts. So did you know that excess inventory can tie up 20 to 40% of revenue for businesses, hampering cash flow? Huge. And did you know that overstock can prompt discounts of up to 50% or more, hurting profit margins? And did you know that the average US retailer has only 63% inventory accuracy, mainly caused by human error? So this is going to give you that information by stock, essentially what category, to allow you to make those better business decisions. That way you're saving time on actually having to go through the data and calculate this. It's already available for you. That way it gives you more time to actually make those longer term, bigger business strategies. And so the overstock, understock reporting can help prioritize essentially what products to focus on for that maximum efficiency. And like I said, you can feel free to click into each section. Next, we have winners and losers. Again, clicking into the I if you want more information. And this is also going to essentially, it's like going to give you even more granular with the data offerings and kind of what information you want to be looking at. Again, no more filing through an Excel sheet and creating pivot tables. This information is readily available and dynamic, so it's constantly changing with the micro adjustments from your real-time sales and AI. What I mean by that is you may have a general perception of what your winners and losers are, or you may have a process in place to look at your winners and losers, but that's probably manual and not something that you're constantly updating. Because we have this AI last updated software, it's going to give you the real-time data of what your winners and losers are doing, as well as because Foresight AI is solving for a lot of making sure that your correct products get to the correct location within your warehouse hierarchy. It's actually going to break it down by location if you'd like. Right now I have it on all locations, but if I were to click into a location, something that might be a winner at location A may be a loser at location B. And so again, that's giving you the knowledge to be able to make better business decisions. Does it make sense for you to be running a marketing campaign in a certain place? Should you be moving stock around? This is going to give you that information so that you can make those better decisions. And so, yeah, like I said, I haven't actually said this yet, but each category is going to show you a snapshot of the overall stock value, as well as the share of the category across your business. So I already kind of touched on it, but why does it matter? You can now quickly and easily identify which products are driving growth and which ones are holding you back. This will help you optimize the inventory levels of winners to maximize revenue and eliminate lost sales from stockouts, which I already kind of touched on, that this is also, it's all intertwined, all this information, but also available to you in that inventory health report. But this is going to give you a little bit more on that stock by stock level, maybe even looking at categories. And I'm going to pause here for a poll because I would like to ask you something about your winners and losers. I just kind of touched on the breaking down of how we look at it, but I wanted to quickly ask you, how confident are you in your winners and losers right now? How often are you actually looking at your winners and losers? Is that something that you're also calculating your chasers? Do you have multiple categories? Just kind of want to get a sense of, what you're thinking about your current process in conjunction with, what we have to offer with Foresight AI. And it looks like a few people, most folks are kind of in the 3 range. Couple people with a 2, couple people with a 1 and a 4, but generally speaking around a 3, somewhat confident. If you are confident, that's awesome. But just know that this would be a huge time saver, because whatever your process is now, you likely won't have to actually do that in the future if you decide to move forward with Foresight AI. I'm going to end the poll there and thank everyone so much for participating. We will have another poll or 2 throughout this presentation. Next, I've already kind of scrolled down to it, but we also have stock trends. So this is going to give you a little bit more insights on how well your stock is performing by category over time. It's going to be more of a graph version. So if you're more visual like myself, you might find this very useful. It's going to give you essentially what's happening and give you a direction on where you'd like to move in the future. So this is stockouts, lost revenue to stockouts, as well as overstock, which are the numbers available in this inventory health. However, this is just a snapshot of your current state. This is going to show you kind of the trend that you've had over time. So it is showing you, in this case, the last month's worth of data. And it looks like my stockouts climbed in the beginning of the month and have stayed steady. My lost revenue also kind of similar because, right, those are pretty attached. And in addition, my overstock has also gone up. So this means I probably need to button up my processes of reordering. Maybe I need to be running a marketing campaign, but this is essentially alerting me, hey, this is something I should be paying attention to and something that I might want to be thinking about. And with that, I'm going to give you another poll. And the poll's just kind of going to be a summary or kind of thinking about what we've already gone over so far. So of everything on this page, and quite a bit we've already gone over in 15 minutes, what feature so far seems the most useful to you? So we have this inventory health report, which is giving you that snapshot of your inventory health. We have the over and under stock reporting. We have the winners and losers, and then we have the stock trend graph. So quite a bit already available to you, and we're just kind of scratching the surface. And it looks like over and under stock slightly ahead, but definitely quite a mix of everything being useful, which I'm really happy to see. Glad everybody can see the value in this. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And just a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A function. I will be happy to answer those at the end of the presentation. So we've already gone over now your dashboard and the insights available to you and shown you the health of your inventory. And so now the question is, right, how do we fix it? How do we start to move these numbers in a direction that's more optimized? So if we go down to purchase, you'll see that we have this new smart reorder again with the purple branding. And this is where we can start to solve that ForesightAI problem and answer, which is designed to fix a very big problem, right? What to reorder, when to reorder, and how much. So this is where this smart reorder is going to come into the picture. Taking a step back, ForesightAI is using your sales order history, AI, and a bunch of algorithms to calculate your reorder quantity. Not only that, it's relying on your purchase order periods and lead times to help with when to order. So there's a huge complexity behind the number generated. If you want to look more into it, you can go ahead and start scrolling through the smart reorder suggestions. Kind of breaks it down a little bit more than what I'm going over, but I know that for the nuts and bolts, you probably want to see how it kind of works in the live demo. So here's some ways that you're going to be able to view this page. So period is going to be frequency of ordering, or essentially like when to reorder. So you can order today, all the orders that are quote due today, all the orders that are due in the following, the next 7 days, next week. So the next 7 to 14 days, this month, next month, or a custom period. And this kind of just depends on how frequently you want to order or how much ordering you're doing. If you're ordering every day, probably daily makes sense. However, I've seen some folks use it just weekly, and then they have all their orders done for the week. That's great. And then they just order at that same time next week. So it can be a huge time save that way as well. In this case, we'll move it to this week. Reorder type. So this is going to be essentially, you can think about this as the stock movement. So a purchase is going to be just a very simple purchase order as you normally think about it. So I'm ordering a purchase from a supplier. It's a regular PO, and I'm going to get that in my inventory. A transfer is going to be internal, and so it's going to be just that, a branch transfer. So moving from one area to another. This can be just a run-of-the-mill transfer, or if you do production jobs, this could be moving from a production facility to a warehouse to a store, etc. So any internal movement is going to be a transfer. In addition to that, we also have assembly, and this is going to be keeping track of if you're someone who uses production jobs or assemblies. This is where that's gonna be a suggestion, and this is gonna suggest based on if we're thinking about how ForesightAI works, because it is a sales forecasting software, it's working backwards. So it's using all this technology to come up with a sales forecast, and from there it wants the inventory to match the sales forecast, give or take some safety stock. But with that, it's going to want to help you and give you guidelines as to how much you should be producing, not just ordering, but if you have assembly jobs, tracking that as well, and also tracking the timing of how long it takes for these assembly jobs or the production jobs. So an assembly job is essentially going to be a nudge to say, hey, this is how much, this is when you should start your production job, and about this is how many you should make. And then it probably will have it transfer from that production warehouse then to that final destination. Supplier, fairly straightforward. You can filter by supplier and then destination location where the product is going to. So lots of filters that you can use depending on how you want to do your buying, but they're all available to you. So thinking about your current reordering process, it might involve Excel sheets, it might involve minimum order quantities that are triggered, etc. Maybe there is some guesswork involved. All I have to do is click generate suggestions and it would do it all for me. It looks like, let's see if we can maybe look in this next month. Or yeah, let's do this month. Generate suggestions. Oh, purchase is not available. This is the fun part about using a demo environment with everyone. So let's see if we can, essentially what this would be showing is a location, a supplier, the supplier SKU, the product, the reorder date, which would be today, and that would probably show a smaller amount, or it might show even more if I was going to do this week. You know, it shows orders that are prompted today, tomorrow, etc. Available at, available, on order, minimum order quantity, and reorder quantity. So I'll go over, you can set a minimum order quantity still, and the system will take that into consideration. But what I do want to call out is the reorder quantity is something that the ForesightAI is going to suggest. And this is going to be that optimal inventory amount. So you're no longer having to worry about that overstock or that understock. ForesightAI is going to calculate that for you, like I already kind of touched on. However, it is just a suggestion. So this is where that AI meets human element, where if you're having cash flow constraints, you can always edit the number available here. And then once you click it, in this case, like I could click the top menu and that would prompt all of them to be reordered, or I could click singular SKUs. And then once I click reorder, it'll create a draft purchase order. And then from there, all I have to do is approve it and then it's sent. So you can see how that would be a big time save. But it does go SKU by SKU. The cool thing about this software is it does merge orders together, hence this merge suggestions button. What that means is it's going to combine the orders onto one purchase order by supplier, ultimately saving you money on freight, being able to kind of not have multiple purchase orders with one line item go to a supplier, but being able to consolidate that as well. I think that's pretty much everything. I'm sorry I couldn't show you more, but if you move forward with ForesightAI, this will definitely populate for you. Next thing I'd like to go over is the reports. So if we click on reports, we'll see that there's new ForesightAI reports available to you again in purple. And it's available by clicking through they are available to you by clicking through the dashboard, like I showed that reporting already, or I showed how you could click into those reports already. But if you just want to shortcut and go to the reporting, you can do so here. We have sales forecast, overstock, stock out, as well as winners and losers. Pro tip would be for winners and losers, like I already touched on with reporting, I highly recommend downloading the winners and losers report into Excel to get better access to the information. Currently, it is in alphabetical order and does not allow for grouping. So the information is there, but for example, it'll go in order of chasers, losers, and winners, like I said, because it's alphabetical, and then it'll actually go by location rather than SKU. So I think you can just manipulate the data better a little bit in Excel. However, we have given this feedback to our product team, so this is something they're aware of and they are working on. But yeah, that's all of the reports available. Also in the beginning, I kind of recommend using the sales forecast. It gives you a snapshot into where you've been the last 12 months and also gives you an idea about the 12 months moving forward. With that, you're probably wondering, what are next steps? How do I get started? So there is some fine tuning that may be needed on your account. Like I said, you've already seen all of the day-to-day functionality that you'll probably be using, primarily looking at the dashboard and seeing your inventory health, your overstock, understock, winners and losers, keeping an eye on that. Or if you have the time, you can get a little bit more into that data. or you're also in here using that smart reorder. However, there are some things that may not necessarily be relevant into your current Foresight AI SKUs that might not actually make sense to have in Foresight AI. What I mean by that is, do you have labor as a SKU? What does that look like with reordering? What about new items? What about SKUs that you're sunsetting? So you can find all of this fine tuning in the forecast and settings, specifically on the smart reorder page in this top right-hand corner. If I click into this, and I guess if you've been following the Foresight AI journey, you may have seen this page before. Foresight AI is not necessarily new, but reiteration of Inventoro. We've worked on it very heavily behind the scenes to allow for a better user experience and really tied together more with Sin 7, hence the embedded experience I was just showing you. But it is a lot of the same information and the same technology. So a lot of this information in this view is available to you already in Core as modules in the sections that we went over. And this is going to give you the information organized a bit differently. So feel free to poke around here as you get acquainted in your account. Again, I'm a little bit more visual, so I really like this forecast page. And again, you can filter this by warehouse, supplier, category, or product. So if I put one of these filters on, it's going to immediately change the graph. But this is going to give me kind of a snapshot of where we've been in the past and what the forecast looks like in the future. But this is available in that sales forecast report that you have in Core as well. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the #1 reasons you're likely to click into this is to adjust your settings. You can adjust your settings by clicking on the top right circle icon with your company name and then scrolling down to the edit arena. Here you can make your SKU by SKU adjustments that can help fine tune the data shown in Foresight AI in your Core platform. So for example, what you can do is click on product, search a product filter, and then it'll populate down here at the bottom. And this is where you can change change the settings of the SKU so that it'll change how you view it in your Foresight AI environment. So in this case, if we're looking at products, as far as what we're going to see is we're going to see the product, we're going to see the supplier, and we're going to see the warehouse. Again, we're looking at a location level, not necessarily an overall stock level. So that's kind of something to keep in mind as you're fine tuning. Parent warehouse, if you want to set one, here's where you can set that minimum order quantity. So like I touched on earlier, this is where you could make that fine tuning and that adjustment. Packing, how many come in a pack? If we're thinking about eggs, right? 12 eggs come in a carton. So you would have a 12 here. Something big I want to touch on is this orderability and visibility. And this is kind of what I was getting at when I asked about labor and sunsetting items. If you have something checked as not orderable, it's not something that's going to show up in that smart reorder. So it's something that is maybe you want to still track the SKU as a winner and loser. You still want to see it in your forecast, but it's not necessarily something you want to reorder. A good example of this would be custom furniture. That's something that you probably want to track how well it's doing, and you want to see if it's a winner or a loser, but that's not something you want to necessarily have on hand because you're making it to order. So in that case, I would keep it out of the orderability, but I still want it to be visible. Visibility is if you wanted to show up, or orderability, sorry, before I move on, would also be if you wanted to sunset an item. So you don't want it to show up in smart reorder, you just want to keep selling through the rest of your stock, but maybe you want to see the forecast and if you want to see if it is a winner or a loser. Visibility is going to take it out of all of Foresight AI. And so this would be that labor that I was talking about. If you have that as a SKU right now, you probably don't necessarily want to track it in your forecast winners and losers. If you order packaging for your materials, so cardboard boxes, was it like packing peanuts? Anything that you're using excess, you don't really want to necessarily see if that's a winner or a loser. You want to see if your actual products are winners and losers. So that would be something that you may not necessarily want to see visible at all. Created at is going to show you when you obviously created the item. I haven't touched on this yet, but you can set a minimum and maximum inventory here. I'm just going to jump to the forecast really quickly. So you can set your own minimum and maximum inventory, but Foresight AI is actually going to calculate a safety stock for you, and it's going to be dynamic. And that's going to be because it's trying to solve for that overstock and understock amount. So in periods that you have higher sales, it may have a higher safety stock to account for more sales. That way you're not being prone to stockouts. In more items of lower sales period, it's going to have a lower safety stock allotted because it's not going to want you to necessarily have overstock either. So pretty cool that it changes from like month to month, day to day, and in conjunction with your sales forecast. So that is the minimum inventory and maximum inventory. If you're food and bev, expiration in days, there isn't necessarily a way to be tracking batches. That is something that is going to happen in your core environment, but you can give a ballpark of expiration in days for once you receive your product to then actually when it would expire. So 7 days would be, a week, or 14 days, 2 weeks, etc. Purchase period and lead time. In this case, you can set, well, it's already synced over in your core embedded experience, what the purchase order period and lead time is by supplier. What I mean by that is purchase period is how frequently you're ordering, once a week, once a month, it's every other month, etc. Lead time is going to be how long it takes you to actually get the good from completing your purchase order to actually receiving it in your inventory. However, if, a supplier has a 1 or 2 off for certain SKUs that you either need to be purchasing more frequently or they take longer or shorter to get to you, you can change that on the SKU by SKU level. We also have volume, how big an item is, how much an item weighs, and then also predecessor. So as I was saying very, very briefly, what do you do with it? What do you do with a new product? So ForesightAI, as a rule of thumb, needs 6 months of data in order to start accurately predicting your entire SKU volume, or all of your SKUs. So as a business entirely. However, item by item, it needs 90 days in order to start accurately predicting. However, this predecessor feature is almost a shortcut in which you can link an older item's sales order history data to a new sales order or to a new item so that it can start immediately going off of that old forecast. And then with the AI feature and the micro adjustments that are going to be happening with every sync multiple times a day, it'll start to inch into its own forecast and start accurately predicting on its own almost immediately. So instead of having to wait 90 days, you can use this predecessor feature. And then you can also change your replenishment recommendations. And if you want to have a specific replenishment, hierarchy of where things get replenished by. With that, that is all the fine tuning for now. But like I said, feel free to click through, see what's available to you. I like the forecast page a lot. Also, actually, just one more thing to touch on here. The computer doesn't know what it doesn't know. So there may be instances where you may need to make a forecast adjustment for the future state based on information that the computer doesn't know. So like I said, it's going off of sales order history data, AI and algorithms, but there can be future states that you may need to account for. So I can create a forecast adjustment. And what this means is it's not necessarily year-over-year growth. ForesightAI is already able to see that. However, if you were going to say have a big marketing push, that's something that you probably need to account for in your forecast. And this would be a change in percentage. So something that is like a pretty big spike in your normal day-to-day sales. We also have a trend in percentage, and this is going to be something that would be a little bit bigger and maybe longer term, meaning you're pairing with a new distributor, you're opening up a new store, something that is, like I said, a little bit more longer term. And then we also have change in quantity, and this is going to be that SKU by SKU level of making an adjustment, and that could be something like going viral on TikTok with something. You would probably want to make an adjustment for the next few months at least. And these are what they look like when you have them as an adjustment, and pretty good to make a note of what it is. That way you can keep track of it. But just wanted to point that out before I moved on. With that, we're at 30 minutes. We have about 15 minutes for Q&A. So if you can stick around, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A. I really like this slide because I feel like with numbers really kind of wraps up why ForesightAI would be useful. So like I said, we're back, I guess, kind of at the beginning. Now we're, wrapping up. But if there's anything I can leave you with, let me leave you with this. ForesightAI's advanced forecasting empowers businesses with affordable, intuitive tools to unlock efficiency, free up inventory capital, and never miss a sale. So if you like this information we just went over, please feel free to take advantage of our Foresight AI new sign-up offer. For the first 300 participants, we're giving away 6 months, 50% off. I believe we're somewhere around $250. So please don't delay if you're interested. And in addition to that, we are also offering free onboarding. So highly, highly recommend taking advantage of that, even if you want to think of it as an extended trial. And if you want to sign up for Foresight AI, you can do so under your subscription tab in Core. With that, please feel free to stick around and ask questions in the Q&A. We will be sending out a copy of the recording and a follow-up email. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful day. With that, let's get to some questions. So under replenishment recommendations, what are the main differences between the 4 options? See, go to the edit arena. For example, if we choose using minimum inventory, does that mean it will only consider the minimum inventory and nothing else? How about using sales forecast? Does that mean replenishment will only be based on sales forecast? Other parameters such as MOQ, minimum inventory, supplier lead time will not be considered, or will those parameters still be considered? How about automatic? What is the main difference between these? So if we go to the far right-hand side, in the edit arena, this is where I think the question is being asked. So automatic is going to be based on all of those factors. So we're looking at the sales forecast. We're looking at your current sales orders that may be in flight. And it also is going to be looking at all of your inventory. Using sales forecast is going to be a little bit more based on just your sales forecast. So it's not necessarily going to take current sales into account, as well as not so much of the safety stock. So it is going to be pretty close to the line of what the sales forecast is predicting. That's what you should be ordering. Using minimum inventory is going to be based on those items or that minimum inventory that you set over here on the left. So essentially, as you dip below this number of minimum inventory, it would then trigger a replenishment. And last would be replenish using customer orders. That's going to be, it's only going to give you a replenishment recommendation based on a customer order coming in. So again, this would be like a use case for that custom furniture example that I had earlier. I'm only going to want to order it if a customer is ordering it from me. What about planned promotions? And then that was that. If you have any follow-ups to that, though, please feel free to add it into the Q&A. Another question, what about planned promotions that we have scheduled with grocery stores? How would we put them in Foresight? Great question. That would be something that you would probably put as a forecast adjustment. So the way that it works is you would set it for a certain time, and then you could do a change in percentage, a trend in percentage, or you could also do it depending on if it's like a category, you could actually do it by a certain category, or you could create a promotion for like a certain category. Or a collection. So you could get, if you do change in quantity, you could probably get pretty granular with how you wanted to set up a promotion. I would say the sooner the better, though. That way the system can account for it. And also for you, that way you can have your items at the right time and you're not necessarily going to be prone to stockouts or backfilling any orders. And I'll go ahead and click after that. And then that also brings up a good question that I had gotten in an earlier webinar. And I think that there's a really interesting shift in thinking as you're using this software compared to probably what you're doing now. What you may be doing now is being a little bit more reactive with your ordering, right? I'm going off of my sales order history data, and then from there, I'm maybe doing some calculations in Excel, and then I'm trying to guess and I'm trying to plan for the future. So I challenge you to rethink that as you're using Foresight AI, because the Foresight AI is going to be so much more proactive because it's already doing that calculation for you with high accuracy. And then it's also going to be able to help you plan so that as we think about going into your Foresight AI, so not only are you not having to worry about that guesswork and calculating, but it's going to be so close to the actual amount that these numbers are going to start to draw down as well, putting more money in your pocket. So that kind of reactive versus proactive thinking is super, super helpful. Another question, If we update the bundle component, will it reflect in Sin 7 Core? How about other parameters in the edit arena? Once edited in Foresight, will it reflect in Sin 7 Core? Yes. So as far as bundles, the production job, let's see, with the smart reorder feature that I was kind of talking about, if we have our assembly, if I generate the suggestions, it would tell me where the production job is happening, the product that it's creating, the reorder date, so when you should start the assembly. Available at would be when around it should be ready. So this is going to be the start date and this is going to be the end date. How many you have available? How many are currently on order? And then if you have a minimum order quantity or like a minimum amount to run the production job, that would be applicable here. And then you have the reorder quantity. So how many it wants you to make in this, production job. As far as the sync between the two, like I said, it does sync multiple times a day. So if you make a change in Sin 7 Core with Foresight AI technology, it will go over. And similarly, if you make some changes in the edit arena, it should sync over. Depending on how big of a change you're making, it may take some time to actually sync though. So I would say right now, to be on the safe side, maybe like 12 hours for something on the bigger side. Purchase orders are going to happen almost immediately if you're doing the purchase order period, but it really just depends on how big a data that you're trying to change. Next, under replenishment and production plan, what is the basis of start date and end date lead time? How does the system identify the lead time of production? Is it based on the lead time of the supplier for each component as well? What are the other factors being considered? That's a great question. And that essentially kind of goes back into what I was saying with the sales forecast and working backwards. So it's trying to ensure that a certain amount of SKUs to match your sales forecast are in the correct warehouse or store at the correct time for sale. So it's going to work backwards as far as like, does a production job need to happen? If so, how long does that take? What's the transfer time between warehouse to warehouse? Okay, how long does it take to also get those raw goods to the proper warehouse so that the production job can take place and then it can transfer? So there is a lot of factors that go into this, which is why it's nice that this kind of does that guesswork for you. Um, but like I said, under the replenishment, as far as the start date and the end date, I already kind of touched on it, but the reorder date is when you should be starting the production job. Available at is when it's going to be finished. And this is based on your production jobs and assembly jobs that you already have in Core, meaning that it's going off of production jobs that you've already done in the past and it's creating an aggregate of what that timing actually is. But I believe you can override that if you want to. Again, this is just creating that suggestion of the reorder. So you can always wait to action these if maybe, your reorder date and available at, if you can like speed up that process, you're welcome to start those a little bit later. But I would say like Core is still going to be your single source of truth in your production module if you are using production jobs. So this is going to help kind of move along the process and definitely give you a really good reference for timing of when you should be starting them so that they are completed on time for sales so that you're not risking stock out. But it is, yes, taking into effect raw materials as purchase orders. So the way that you could think of it if you use assembly jobs is Smart Reorder is going to help you get the raw materials. And then it's going to ensure that they get moved to the correct warehouse for that production job to take place. Then under assembly, it's going to tell you once those materials are there, it's going to plan of when they should be there based on when they need to be completed. It'll trigger then an assembly job that you can then create and you can follow. Once assembly job's complete, we'll probably have a transfer going from, that production warehouse to any of the, final stores or other warehouses for storage. So that's how you can think of the flow of goods. If you're not somebody who uses production jobs, you may just have a purchase order that goes from one warehouse or from the supplier to a warehouse, or you may have a purchase order that just goes straight from your supplier to the end store or warehouse. It really just depends on how complex your setup is. But this is tracking everything that you're already doing in Core, so it's pretty out of the box ready. But like I said, we do have free onboarding. So if you want access to anybody on that to fine tune, that is available to you. And with that, those are all the questions that I have in Q&A. So I will give a couple more seconds for folks to ask any more questions. But like I said, I will be sending out a recording of this presentation. And because I'm sending out a recording, you'll have access to my email. So if any questions come up in the future, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email and ask. Looks like no more Q&A now that I've given a couple extra seconds. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for attending today. Keep a lookout in the next few hours for me with a copy of this recording, as well as my email. So again, feel free to ask any questions. But other than that, have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.